all day. All day. You fucking suck at this.
This is Tall Can Audio.
The first recording session of June underway. Happy Pride to anybody who's celebrating. Welcome everybody inside the TCA studio in beautiful Bytown, Canada. My name's Matt Robinson alongside Rob Christie. What's happening, man?
It's a big tent. It's a big tent, man. June babies, pride, and all that stuff.
The one you're pitching over there. It's pretty
modest,
mediocre.
It's a modest tent. It's a modest tent on this side.
We're on social media at Tall Can Audio. If you're still here, give us a follow there. Make sure you're subscribed to the pod wherever you're hearing us right now. It's been a couple weeks since you've been in here, man. Been a couple weeks since I've been in here. What's happening?
Oh, today is fabulous, man. The hot weather is broken, and you'll appreciate this. Well,
I may.
Actually.
I'll decide.
You know what? You live alone, so you won't really appreciate this. But I had the morning to myself prior to the pod. It's beautiful. It's sunny. Made a coffee. Little Carol Ann's in it. A little Irish cream.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Out by the pool.
Mm-hmm.
Got the speaker going. And you know those
What was playing, man?
Well, thank you for asking.
Okay. Yeah.
When you get the good shuffle, it's
You know I love the good shuffle.
yeah, because it's not always a good shuffle. Even when it's your own
It's
music.
your own music. You're like, this sucks. What is this shit?
When did I add Tootsie Roll? How long has that been?
That's never been a bad shuffle. Why don't you just settle down over there?
Yeah, you think that was random, or do you think that may have been selected on purpose?
Yeah.
I think you still have that on there from the old sort of LimeWire days or something, because I think when that song comes around, the quality's not great.
Yeah, no, you might be right about that. But there was a time that for sure Tootsie Roll. I can't even tell you why I had it, but I absolutely had it.
Doesn't matter, Matt.
No.
Doesn't matter what. So
Good shuffle day.
I hit that sweet trifecta, which the songs you're not totally expecting, but you're like, it's awesome. Awesome. And so it came up with, first thing up was, so again, the sun's beating down. I got my feet in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
First one was Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, but the Urge Overkill version.
Okay.
So from sort of think of the Pulp Fiction soundtrack.
Yeah.
Followed by Sundown by Elroy, the Elroy version.
Yeah, now you're talking. All right.
Okay, and then it kicks in, and this to me, you're working on a B plus right there, those two, and you're like, all right. After it comes up, The Klansman by Iron Maiden, the live Rock in Rio version.
Okay, look at this fucking guy.
And I'm like, I don't know, man. I got to shut it off. I got to shut the Spotify off after this because I'm not sure we can better.
Because I need a smoke.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I'm like, man, it's just a beautiful day. So, and for those of you who aren't familiar, yeah, The Klansman is a post Bruce Dickinson tune. It's a Blaze Bayley tune. Post. Paul Di'Anno was first.
Yeah. Okay.
Bruce Dickinson came in.
Yeah.
Then left. And so late 90s.
You blew it!
Yeah, you thought you knew something.
I really did. I don't know why I thought that.
Yes. But the Rock in Rio version is Bruce Dickinson back in the band doing the Blaze Bayley tune. And
It's like every now and then he's just got to step away, let people write a good tune, and then come back and perform.
So, but to me, the live version, it's in Rio, and you know the Brazilians love their metal and they're into it. It's an awesome version. Klansman by Iron Maiden, the live version, Rock in Rio. So I am fired up, Matt. Back in studio for the first time in, I don't know, 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
Feeling good, man. Feeling good.
Well, before we get to the pints, then, I'd like to issue you
Challenge!
challenge.
Yeah, right.
As has been brought up a couple times here recently on the pod, I'm hurtling towards an uncomfortable birthday. And we're going to celebrate that.
Muscle up, chump.
Yeah. And no, just going to cower
Like
in the
a chump,
corner.
hey. Like a chump, hey.
Funny you bring them up. We're going to have a little shindig.
We are.
And I've been working on the playlist
Oh, it's important.
for that shindig. And I've sort of been back and forth between crowd pleasers and fuck off.
It should be Matt.
It's for me.
It's
right.
Matt. To me, forget about anybody else.
But so I'm working on Matt's band, and then what songs here
Shipping up to Boston,
might be
Dropkick
most.
Murphys.
So I want to issue a little challenge to Rob, and I'm going to give him some time. Maybe we'll do this next week, maybe the week after. We'll record kind of a secondary pod when you're in here. And you're going to take a run at, I'm going to give you 10 guesses at songs that are going to be a part of this playlist. And it's sort of loosely, because I got to give you something, right? It's sort of loosely the timeline of Matt's musical tastes.
Sixpence, None the Richer. It's got to be on there somewhere.
Yeah, it's not. I do understand why you came to that. It's the Newfound Glory cover that I love, right? And that's,
yeah, right.
Yeah. I don't hate the original.
Yeah, see, all right.
But I don't love it. It's not on there. But what I would say to you is I want to give you some room to maneuver here.
All right. Get the elbows up.
I wouldn't there's nothing like being focused on
Lisa
the
Loeb
age.
or anything, right? So we're going to be able to just move it around here.
Right.
All right.
Songs Matt was into at different points in his life.
Perfect.
But it's not themed, right? There's no summer of 69. Obviously, I wasn't born there. But you know what I'm saying? Like
69.
There's no references to 25 because that's what I was listening to at 20. It's just as Matt moved through his life, here's
what Matt was loving.
right.
All
At
right.
different phases in his life. So we're going to give, next week, the week after, we'll give Rob 10 guesses to see how many songs on the playlist right now.
Rob's going to go to work as soon as we get off the pod here.
While we still are on the pod, there are beers to be had.
Yes.
What have you brought to the
there is.
table?
I'm drinking a alcohol-free Radler.
That's not correct.
Crickets. Hey, Stevie Bunda, it was a fantastic show. I do appreciate a Radler.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no shame at all. 2.3%, pretty low.
Pretty low. Much like Bunda's vocals.
But he's
Hey.
he strikes he strikes me as a guava guy.
Yeah.
And I love listening to that guy because to me he brings a childlike wonder and an everyman sports
he took
take.
some shots though in our mentions this week for his Nylander takes and a couple other things he had going. And last year it was he was running Marner out of town and he took a couple of shots for that too. So that was episode 1123 if you want to check that out. Stevie Bunda taking some body shots from the TCA listeners.
But I
and
do
undaunted by it. Just
he's shrugging it off. He's another guy. For as long as you and I have known each other, you are an Andre the Giant singlet, one strap guy. He's another guy. He's he's cut from the same cloth. I think he's wearing the.
This is not correct though. That the Andre the Giant thing is a more recent phenomenon. When we first met, that wasn't inappropriate.
All right, yeah, for sure. No, you graduated into that haystack Calhoun thing you got going there.
So there was an article just this past week in GQ that is, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, maybe it was Esquire, one of these fucking magazines, that said it took a long time for it to come back around, but gigantic legged jeans back in style. Yeah! I knew if I just stuck with it long enough, man, because I remember maybe the second time you
If I pair that with a Jenny's jersey, I am fucking smoking hot.
That's it, man. I think it was the second time we'd met. Like it hadn't been long. Maybe 10 months in between or whatever. And I walked into the gym where we were meeting up, and before you had said, "Hello, Matt, how are things?" It was, "When are you going to bring those pants down to regulation size?" And at the time, I don't think you meant the waistband. It was the legs at that point. Now, it might come from a different place. But I am so excited to see big baggy pants back in style, man.
Dad jeans.
Yeah, well, that's what we're going to call them. I'm totally good with that.
I'm going with
riding
it.
hard with
We're
it.
doing it.
You know, I never walked away from the jorts. They sort of half came back last summer. I'm in, man.
The jorts. And I'm not sure what's worse, right? The ones that you've cut from...
Those are worse.
And they have a little fray on them.
Yeah, no.
Versus the ones that come with their own little hem, and you're like, "Look at me! My mom bought these for me, and I'm looking good."
Okay, now I'm back to not being I have finally gotten to stop at a brewery I've been meaning to check into for a little while now, but their hours were making things difficult. Charbot Lake.
Come on, man.
The Kick and Push Brewing Company there. Stopped on the way back from the lake and walked in there. it almost looks like an old fashioned, like an old school, like wood house or something like that. And you go in, it's kind of like I don't know what you'd call it, like an unfinished vibe, like a lodge vibe, maybe as much as anything else.
I love that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And, people inside were pretty nice. And grabbed a few different things from there that we'll check out over the next couple of weeks. This one is called Humility.
The show was full of it, Matt.
Exactly. The show is full of it. This is their kind of golden lagered ale.
Yeah.
And so looking forward to checking that out. I picked up a few other things. They had a British IPA in there that we picked up. We'll get into. There was a Mexican lager that we'll try out down the road.
Cerveza.
Yeah. So we'll see what that looks like. But, man, this has sort of been on the radar for a while, right? Our friend Schreids had been in there and raving about it. Lever Sage had been in there and raving about it. And finally got there. I pass by it all the fucking time, but it's either too late, too early, wrong day of the week, and they're closed. Just happened to make it work this time. So
Well, I met up with my aunt. I was out. We had a family brunch, and as I was telling you in the green room, she's sort of lived for a long time on Silver Lake, so just east of Charbot Lake. So I was saying to her, "Hey, what about this kick and push?" And she's like, "I know nothing about that."
Okay.
But she's like, "I didn't see it in the newsletter." And so, anyways, it was. What's your first take on that?
Pretty nice. It's got a lot of exactly the flavor you would expect, right? So some of these come in kind of watery, right, when they're of this style. This has got a lot of flavor to it, a lot of taste to it. It tastes golden, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Carbonated.
You're getting that sort of bubbly crispness that you would
Exactly,
expect
man.
on
Early
a lager.
returns, pretty nice.
Okay. All right. I am drinking a beer that was gifted to me
You.
by a friend of the show, LSG.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about you, LSG. He has given me from Dominion City.
Nice.
And I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we've had this before. I've never had it. You may have had it.
Okay.
It is the Strawberry Milkshake IPA.
I have not had this one.
So it is. There's no question. He's a smooth operator. Little Sade. Not the Justin Bieber Sade. It's your birthday. It's more Sade. Smooth operator from Dominion City. Comes in at 7%. So I have found it on the first couple pulls. Really, you're getting that strawberry. I am absolutely, without it being overpowering, it's a nice, smooth 7% with a little strawberry. I like it.
Okay.
It's very nice, actually. So coming in the big boy can at 7%, it is a pod-busting opening pint.
I hate when you bust the pod, though, because really that means 4 bathroom breaks.
Well, actually,
I can tell you there is no Sade on the playlist that you will have to be guessing.
Wow, come on, man.
Yet.
Coast to coast from LA to Chicago, smooth operator. Come on, man. You got to get a little time for smooth operator. That should be on your playlist. Now, I think it came out in the year you were born.
All right.
But, man,
maybe conceived too.
Oh, nice. I can picture it, Matt.
No, let's not.
There's 2 sleeping bags put together. It's happening. It's baby making tunes.
I guess that would have been 82, thank God. I should tee up. We got a good guest coming this week, man.
Of course we do. Rob No, I'm not a guest. Sorry about that.
Yeah, unfortunately, Rob just sort of hangs out here, waits for someone to turn the mic
shows
on.
up. It's been a long 3 weeks, Matt.
It has, I bet. But we are headed into week 1 of the CFL season. And, we're going to do it up. The Red Blacks hoping to have a good season coming up.
Julius Caesar Watts.
No.
Conridge Holloway.
No. We are going to have Red Blacks general manager Sean Burke.
Yes, guy!
On the podcast for you on Thursday morning. We'll drop that before game 1 of the season. Yeah, Sean Burke. We've been wanting to do this for a while. Kind of all over our buddy Hoff to, come on, man.
Yeah.
Let's get this done. Like, quit holding the.
Do you think we keep
quit
you around
hogging
for
the
your good
limelight.
takes?
Right, exactly.
Connections, baby, connections.
Right. So Hoffley's hooked that up. It'll be Sean Burke in here for the Thursday morning show. That'll be a lot of fun. We've been looking to do this for a little while now, and so excited he's coming in.
That's an awesome guest, and man, to me, he's that combo of. He's sort of young enough in terms of his football career, and he has a little edge to him that I do too, man. I kind of appreciate.
Yeah. he'll fit in quite nicely here. So make sure you're subscribed. Stick around. We'll be talking CFL and certainly Ottawa Red Blacks with him. And we'll try and keep Hoff maybe out in the green room. We'll see how that all shakes loose. But
well, everybody likes a court jester. Bring him on in.
It's true. Look, well, there's a few different places we can start, man. But I guess maybe we should just touch quickly before we kick
French
things
Open
off. We can get to that, I guess, in a couple minutes. How about you let me hold the wheel?
Yes.
There's three hands over here.
More NASCAR. Let's do it, man.
Mike Babcock suddenly over the weekend emerges.
Yeah.
Is going to become the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And it's funny that they're waiting until July 1st to announce it when his contract runs out.
When I can milk every single dollar.
The Athletic reports this week that they wanted to announce this earlier, but they were unable to negotiate with the Leafs this last month of this. You're like, it's not like buying out 2.5 years of his contract. There's like 28 days left. Maybe you can just figure this shit out. No, they're going to wait for July 1st. And they will unveil him as the new coach. Most people will remember he was fired from the Leafs back around, I think it was December of 2019.
Yeah.
And afterwards, it starts to come out that, you know, there had been some bad feelings around some things he did with Mitch Marner. We've covered that before on the podcast. Afterwards, other players start to come out, talk about some of the things he maybe had said and done to Johan Franzen back in Detroit. And that maybe this guy wasn't quite ready to coach in this generation of...
Not a super nice guy, maybe.
Perhaps not, right? And he kind of got some positive press for no real reason on Hockey Night when they, I guess, decided to help rehabilitate his image. That was, I believe, in 2021, a piece with Christine Simpson on Hockey Night in Canada. And then he sort of disappeared again. He had been doing some stuff for University of Saskatchewan.
1 year.
Right. And so there'd been attempts, I guess, to rehab his image a little bit. There was talk. I don't know if he ever actually interviewed when the Capitals job was open last year, that maybe he'd interviewed for that. And I guess there was also some rumors that maybe the Rangers had been interested this year after firing Gerard Gallant, but that maybe Babcock himself preferred a slightly less high-profile return to the NHL. Instead of being in another New York or Toronto or Detroit, maybe you go to Columbus. I think you and I both believe in second chances. I do believe at some point before you get that second chance, you have to show some receipts on what you've done.
We also both believe in second helpings.
100%, man. We'll see when they unveil him. The Columbus Blue Jackets PR team is going to have some heavy lifting to do here, and I think you will have to, show some receipts that he's learned some things, he's worked on some things. Otherwise, this is a pretty shitty hire. I don't know how much you have on this, but I thought it was pretty noteworthy that suddenly out of nowhere the guy's headed to Columbus, Ohio.
Well, he retired last year, if you remember.
I do remember.
And so I don't get that.
The Ric Flair retirement.
Just shut your pie hole. Yeah. Just wait. Just whatever. Whatever shakes loose, shakes loose. There's no need to file any papers.
Right.
I think he's a Jarmo Kekalainen guy. I think Kekalainen, who's hired Tortorella in the past and loved him. I think Jarmo likes a sort of a bit of an old school.
How do you think Johnny Gaudreau, who apparently did not particularly enjoy playing for Daryl Sutter, leaves for Columbus, signs along?
I can only suggest that Johnny Gaudreau had a great season last year, or 2 years ago. I guess we're still in this year.
Right.
He had a great season when everyone thought that's never going to work. Mm-hmm. And it seemed to work out quite well in terms of how that.
And then he left.
Yeah. Well, that's because he hated Calgary.
Who doesn't?
Right? Anybody who's going to I think he saw the whole Danielle Smith thing coming and.
Oh, boy.
And decided, you know what? Beat it. They don't care about healthcare here. I don't want to raise a kid here.
So I'm going back to the U.S.
Exactly. I'm going to go home. And then he got halfway there and thought, this is far enough.
It's far enough. It's
really,
far.
Man, it's a long drive, man. I think this sets up. Now, they have a young team. They have some good young players.
100%. And about to get another one.
And you look at maybe the way that Marner situation was handled and your ability to sort of motivate versus put pressure on young athletes. I'll be interested to see how that works. And you're talking about the receipts, show your improvements. Let's see your work, right? Show us what you've done. I think it's a great opportunity for him. It's
Oh, I love that. It's a great opportunity.
yeah. He's got his bottle of water there, and he's going to put his cap on.
Opportunity.
Yeah. That he is gonna. That it's low key enough, as you said. The spotlight of the Ranger situation, where they're expected to win now.
Yeah. And in New York City.
Exactly. And I think you have enough of the. Well, yeah, and really, man, the media there is.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Is absolutely hawk-like, right, in terms of their adversarial relationship with all coaches.
Yeah.
But that this is a legitimate low-key opportunity to do really well, right? Columbus had a shitty season with all the injuries they had.
Yep.
The young talent they have, you put it all together.
When they brought in Johnny Gaudreau, it was not with the intent of rebuilding. They thought they were taking a step.
To have
and
a run
was
at the top
disaster.
pick? No, that was not the case at all.
So they obviously still think, and now they will add another key piece. I think they're drafting 4th coming up here at the draft. So they will add another piece. And clearly, they think they're ready to take a step here. And I don't know that that's wrong. I don't know how big of a step they'll take. But as you've suggested, they have some really nice young pieces, man.
Well, and you have a coach, if you can remove his Toronto years, who's,
my Toronto years.
Yeah. Welcome to your no, that's you graduate out of those.
Right.
Yeah, with what he did in Anaheim versus, continuing on to winning in Detroit. And I just think it's if you look at it as the coaching hire itself, I don't think I ever thought he wasn't coming back. It's just sort of, hockey is one of those things where you go, who's going to get a job sooner, Joel Quenneville or Mike Babcock?
Stan Bowman, all of whom apparently petitioning right now the league to, can we have that meeting you said we need to have before I can get a job again?
Yeah. And they will get a job.
I do.
Like this, right? So Babcock, not nice things seem to, after what's transpired since 2019, you're like, hey, man, I'm not such a bad guy. Hey, come on. This is not, I'm not Pol Pot. Let's just, can we move on with this? So I think this is one of those sorts of, I wouldn't do it personally.
Yeah.
But I think this has the potential to be a great hire for Columbus on the ice.
You've mentioned him maybe being a Kekalainen guy. I guess they've known each other for like 30 years since Babcock was working for, I believe, Portland back in the day, whatever. So maybe not particularly shocking that if anyone was going to give him this chance, it is the Blue Jackets. So we'll see what happens in Columbus. It'll be an interesting story to follow. And we'll go from there. They're going to have a high draft pick this year, and the highest draft pick, of course, going to Chicago. And I don't think anybody would be too surprised if they take Connor Bedard that day. Yeah, yep.
That Bedard guy.
All hype.
Right? Yeah, seems like it.
No. I guess I should ask, because he was just out there at the Memorial Cup receiving many awards. The Pete's, bit of a run. Were you watching? Did you find yourself engaged? Well, returning to your...
I love the maroon and white machine.
Yeah.
That's true. Short of that period in my late teens when I was fighting them at the bars. That's just how that goes. But as he...
/ getting punched out by.
Nah, honestly. Lacrosse players, hockey players.
Okay.
Hockey players are mostly pussies. Can I say pussies? Is that... No?
Opportunity to say.
Probably not. Mike Babcock, where you at, buddy? Another throwback old guy. Sorry about that. Yeah. I followed them right up till they were going to play. They obviously came back and beat Kamloops in the. Yep. I did not see what happened on the weekend at all. So
yeah, they forced.
I assumed that they were going to get smoked by Seattle in the semis.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the semis, but honestly, I haven't engaged in the Memorial Cup a whole lot. But they did end up losing that to.
Well, the Seattle team was
pretty stacked.
And so I sort of...
Later tonight, it'll be, Quebec.
Quebec and Seattle. And so that is kind of the way, the whole Memorial Cup is taken up by the idea that I don't want to see Patrick Waugh show up here in Ottawa. Just saying. despite what's being maybe thrown around in a couple
Ah,
spots.
there's always names here in Ottawa. We're getting this guy and that guy. What do we want?
But I don't want that guy, and I don't want that guy, and Nick Kiprios, no, and this and that, and so
you're getting kippered.
yeah. So oh fuck, we're out here, and I got kippered. So, but yeah, love to see the maroon and white.
Good run. Hell of a run for those guys. So while he was out there, obviously lots of talk about the upcoming draft, and this is, of course, being Connor Bedard. And there was some comparisons being done. Where does this guy fit in with recent number one overall picks and guys that we've used the term generational talents for and this sort of thing? So The Athletic wrote a piece, and it was pretty good, pretty well done. We'll share the link in the show notes. And it was sort of outlining where they used 5 different executives and scouts and asked their opinions. Where does he fit in with the last 10 years, well, 9 years plus this upcoming year, where he will fit in with these recent number one overall picks? And so I don't know how you think we should attack this, whether I should hit the full list first or just work kind of through it, or I've got it here in front of me.
I think first and foremost is the issue that in reading it, there's the two things you have to grapple with, right? Which is the players today versus, I think, the intent of the article,
Yes.
which was the player in their draft year.
How we viewed them going into the draft. Yes.
Correct.
I think that's right.
And so when you look at it, you're like, yeah, I was shocked by the whole thing, looking at it from the perspective of, you know, where he ranks amongst, and you're talking about guys like McDavid and Matthews and Jack Hughes and just where he ranks in amongst those guys. And you go, well, today I'm not putting him ahead of Jack Hughes.
Right.
But the intent of the article, which you kind of have to then
It forces you to go back
to
in
go back and
time.
forth,
Yeah.
back and forth, right? And sort of look at the status. And so you have to kind of forget that some of these guys have had.
Jack Hughes just had an MVP caliber season.
Right,
But
that some of these guys have had 8 years
goals before. The Connor McDavid is clearly an all-time legend.
So you have to kind of forget what you already know in some instances, right? And sort of look at them in vacuums.
Right.
2015, 2016,
So this is, as
2023.
you suggested, how we viewed these players heading into draft weekend and not what they have become. So number one will surprise nobody, Connor McDavid. And then they slid right in there, Connor Bedard at number 2, which it's heady company, right, that he's already ahead of, even when you consider how we viewed these players on draft day. Number 3 was Auston Matthews. Number 4 was Jack Hughes. Number 5 was Rasmus Dahlin. And at 6, you have Owen Power, so a couple of Buffalo Sabres defensemen already kind of sitting there. And then you get to Alex Lafreniere, Nico Hischier, Aaron Ekblad,
And Montreal looking at you, baby.
Juraj Slafkovsky
Yeah.
in the
In the Shane Wright draft.
back quite a bit there. But, you know, it's hard because we already look at this and go, well, man, Rasmus Dahlin took a little while, but finally busted out. Owen Power, everyone thinks, is going to be a legend. Lafreniere is sort of being viewed as a bit of a bust, right?
Patrick Stefan.
But it's hard to put yourself back in, no. At the time, this is how we thought this was going to shake loose. So they have Connor Bedard at number 2, and it's sort of been listed or being speculated in this article that he has maybe the distance between him skill-wise and McDavid isn't huge, but that the skating is going to be the big difference, right? And that, I guess, shouldn't shock anybody, whether it was in his draft year. Also, McDavid, a bigger player, right? His size also makes him a bit of a unicorn with that speed and skill. But that maybe you're looking at Connor Bedard being more like a Patrick Kane, who has all kinds of talent, all the same skill, all of that stuff.
That sucks.
But just can't keep up, right?
Yeah.
Knows how to knock out a Buffalo cab driver if need be, right? Well, I don't know if Connor Bedard's got that in his back pocket.
Or yes, have some woman who lives in a trailer park, tamper with a rape kit. I'm not entirely.
Oh, Jesus. 7% you say over there, right?
That happened. That's a fact. I'm not.
right.
I just think with the stories that
It's only the trailer park I'm objecting to. Do we know she lived in a trailer park?
I'm pretty sure, man.
All right,
Pretty sure. Double wide. The trailer, not the woman.
Okay. We are officially. I'm going to just go out on a limb here, just for the listener's sake, in case Sean Burke isn't here on Thursday.
Okay.
You'll all know why.
No, he's totally good. He's totally good.
Yeah.
He understands that this is tongue-in-cheek-ish.
Ish.
Yeah, and when you look at it, so to me, there's clearly, I so wanted Rasmus Dahlin to be in a Senators jersey. They were the worst team in the NHL that year.
Right.
Slid. But when you look at the hype, when you look at strictly hype, there is a top five, right? So to me, Lafreniere had a pile of hype as well. Coming out of the juniors, I would probably put him above Owen Powers. Just in that, that's just a 6-7 flip. You know what I mean? But just Owen Powers, if you remember, he had that world championships that was sort of off the charts, right? Good.
Yeah. And the erased World Junior, right, where he was already dominating.
Yeah, to me it is, and I saw Connor McDavid live as a junior here in Ottawa, and his skating, and because the game is going in that direction,
right?
Well, if it's not already there,
yeah,
he was otherworldly coming through the middle of the ice, right? Just between the blue lines, you're like, I'm no scout, despite my serious track record.
Yeah.
That guy was
wanting to draft Line ahead of Matthews.
Yes, that exact kind of thing. Not enjoying the Hossa pick, all those things for Ottawa. I have an excellent. I'm able to project out like nobody's business. I felt like McDavid was going to be like Kyle Turris. That was kind of I remember that.
That would have been a disappointment for most of the McDavid family. I think.
Yes. So that is
most of Oilers Nation.
Yeah, that is my track record for projecting out junior age players. But you are looking at that Matthews, and if you remember all the hype that came with him going over and playing for I believe the Zurich Lions as a 17-year-old playing.
Yeah, he decided, I'm not going to junior where you're not going to pay me, and I'm not going to university where, again, you're not going to pay me. I'm just going to head over here to Zurich where you will pay me. And what was interesting about that is it made him really hard to evaluate, right? Like, he's not playing against his peers now. He's playing in the Swiss League, which is grown men, but not top-tier grown men.
But also had Mark Crawford, I believe, as a head coach, right? So you have a former Stanley Cup winning head coach, you're playing with
who was telling everybody on the radio back here all over, this guy's special, like he's going to be something. But it made him really hard to evaluate, right? It was just a totally different road than we'd ever seen anybody else take. And
but the amount of publicity that came with him was incredible. And especially as soon as the Leafs won that,
that's right.
It sort of kicked into overdrive, right? The hype. Now, the Bedard thing has been going on. It's the duration of the hype on the Bedard front, right? That kind of moves him into that top 2 spot.
So are you suggesting he may not be, if we were to project forward, as we've established you're very good at, 3 years from now, he may not belong in that number 2 spot?
Yeah, if we're talking with talent, I don't think, and again, pro scout hat on, I don't think he skates as well as McDavid.
No.
As Matthews.
Nobody does. Well.
As Hughes, right? Like if you look at the skating, I just and Matthews, wherever he's an above average skater with size.
Yep.
Right? And so to me, there's those components together. Bedard as an undersized guy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting he's gonna be a
No, he's not
pick.
a bust. No.
Right. But you are talking about putting him up there with 60 goal guys, 100-point guys. And that's not even McDavid, right?
Could you see him based on what we've seen at the World Juniors and the little snippets we're seeing from his junior career and stuff? Like, does Patrick Kane seem like an unfair comparison?
No.
That's sort of where I'm not sure we're going to see him stay in the middle. Like, he might be a guy who has to move to the wing. But Patrick Kane, with that kind of passing ability, with that kind of scoring ability, like, it wouldn't shock me if that's almost identically the type of career that this guy has.
Right. And I would agree with that. So to me, Kane is I think if he's not already, he's probably, one of the best products of USA hockey ever. I think that's a great comparison. And as a guy who will be a play driver from the wing, which is super important, right? So, because it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, the Blackhawks, you got to imagine, are going to give him every opportunity to become that number one center that you can build around. But I think you could get 2-3 years into this and see him over on the wing, and that won't be a failure by any means. It's just maybe the reality of I remember talking to you about the World Juniors before they started this year. Connor Bedard playing in the middle in some pre-tournament games, and Adam Fantilli on the wing, not his wing, but another wing, and a lot of scouts saying going into that tournament, by the time this is all said and done, it is more likely that Fantilli will be a center instead of a winger, and Bedard will be a winger instead of a center.
Right, so. and there was parts where Bedard was playing on Shane Wright's wing as well, right?
Yep.
And that was kind of that top line, and before...
Yeah, he had some pro experience by then, so you leave him in the middle and whatever. But they had tinkered with a few different things before the tournament.
Well, and that Shane Wright sort of did the big L fade in that tournament in terms of the expectations, right? Before it became the Bedard show. So to me it was interesting in terms of, and I think I read the article without fully sort of comprehending. It was late Friday night. I was sort of casting through, listening to the Jays game, and I looked at it as where they project out, right? More than where you were looking. It wasn't until it sort of settled into my brain and came through that.
They're not necessarily suggesting he's the second best of these 10 players. When it's all said and done, they're saying on day of draft, this is sort of how these guys would be viewed.
Right. And when you look at the people saying body type and whatever else, probably more Crosby than McDavid, and you're like, that's still an awesome reference.
Yeah.
If you're gonna
Crosby's body types worked okay for him.
Yeah. Well, and you're looking for a guy who's not super tall.
No.
Crosby.
Yeah.
His ability to play down low in front of the net and behind the net.
Yeah.
You're like, for a guy who's not
he's the double wide, right? That big hockey ass down in the corner.
Huge hockey ass and thighs, right? And you go, that is the sort of, if you can sort of move into that and sort of Brad Marchand, that kind of sort of, hey man,
that Halifax East Coast.
This is it, that East Coast ass, right? And you sort of go, awesome. Forget about East Coast lifestyle, East Coast ass. That you're doing all right. Right? That you sort of move in that direction and you go, wow, just that's shit that gets done.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It was an interesting read. I would recommend it to you. Like I said, we'll link it in our social media and in the show notes if you want to check that out for yourself. Draft now just over a couple weeks away. So that'll give us lots to talk about.
Sends and leaves with no picks.
Yeah.
So forget
Hey, we got a nice 28th overall. We got in that Rasmus Sandin deal.
Sorry about that.
Leave us out of your pick shedding.
Because we're winning.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. That's not happening either.
There's things going on. So we will share the links in the show notes at tallcanaudio.com and in our social media. Check that out if you're so interested. Let's shift away from the hockey for a couple minutes and talk tennis. We don't talk enough tennis on the podcast, I don't think.
Are you doing this for my benefit after the initial throw to the Roland Garros talk?
Exactly.
Because I don't got a pile.
Talk pickleball. All our local sports media guests.
I own it, man. I own it. Let's do it.
All the local sports media people who come in here, it's now a competition in the summer months on, I got pickleball on this night. You're like, all right. Come have a beer first. It'll help your performance, I promise. Look, at the French Open, I guess we're going back almost a week now that this happened. I believe it was last Sunday.
No Canadians left in the singles draw as you hear this morning.
Okay.
It's important, man.
All right. This sort of circles around that intersection that we've talked about so many times over the years between sports and the real world. And there was a match between Marta Kostyuk and Arina Sabalenka.
Sabalenka!
Who, I don't know if this is relevant to the discussion or not, but Sabalenka, number 2 in the world.
Belarusian?
She is Belarusian, and Kostyuk is Ukrainian. You can see already how this story is going to unfold. They play each other.
No story, Matt. There's no story here.
In a match at the French Open. And when it's over, Kostyuk, who lost in 2 straight sets, maybe that contributes, maybe it doesn't. That's up to you, good listener, to decide. Instead of going to the net to acknowledge her opponent and shake hands, whatever you might do, she acknowledges the ump, as many players often do, and that's it, and walks off. And is booed roundly by the crowd there for, whether they understood in the moment or not is up for some debate, but they weren't happy at what appeared to be a lack of sportsmanship. And this all obviously stems from Belarus being allied with Russia as they try to destroy Ukraine. And Kostyuk was not particularly interested in shaking hands with a Belarusian athlete at that point. So, as I said a minute ago, this comes to the point of real world versus sports and that intersection and what we expect of these athletes and these people and what we expect the fans to be aware of in that moment. Were they caught off guard just by the politics of it, didn't think of that part, or did they really believe that should have been left out of this? I'm sure you saw the story before I passed on the idea of talking about it here today. What did you make of it, man?
Is there something still happening in Ukraine? Is that still going on?
There's a thing,
Is that still happening?
Yeah.
Are there drone bombs still happening in Kyiv?
Yeah.
Hospitals still being targeted by drones?
Seems like they don't love that in Ukraine.
And in France, they have the most, annual vacation time. They're just an easygoing little wine and baguette. And if there's ever been a country in the last 200 years that's turned and ran or turned over and showed their keister, it's France. Like
I was just gonna say, not quite like that. If
they're doing it. They're like, give it up, man.
If there was,
say hello to your overlords. The Vichy government is coming to you.
If there was a country that maybe might have some sympathy for being invaded, and it might be France, but not at Roland Garros.
No, and if you were unaware, the first thing I think of when I see a Ukrainian athlete and a Belarusian athlete, I think that's uncomfortable.
Yeah,
like I don't know how you, as a European country, a country of the like a citizen of the world, you don't look at that and go,
this could be awkward.
This could be more than awkward, and how that just because it's off of your 24-hour news cycle bullshit that's happening in your house does not mean that the person who is from Kyiv may have an issue.
Still has family back there where it's raining fire right now.
And may still feel personally affected by this. Yeah. So to me, to the Roland Garros crowd, douchebags. all of you. Like to me, the fact that you have moved on in the year and a half since the invasion, not war, invasion has happened. Come on, man. That to me, that is, you are the people that need to be booed. Boo!
Do you think, to be fair to them, and maybe we don't need to be, do you think they booed in that moment because it was off their radar or because they believed she should have? Either way, I'm asking you, are they booing her because they think she should have overlooked that for the glory of sport, or because they didn't even think of it and she just was a bitch not shaking her opponent's hand?
When my grandmother has spent 18 months in a bomb shelter, I don't know if the glory of sport takes first place.
It doesn't.
In that.
But I'm asking you what you think that crowd's mindset was.
I'm thinking they're missing the mark.
Okay.
That to me is.
Do you think there's any obligation for her to go and shake that woman's hand, knowing that Arina Sabalenka isn't the one ordering bombings? And
I get it, but I also can fully understand
Marta Kostyuk,
that where she's coming from, where it's super personal.
Of course.
And I'm sorry, I don't get to shake your hand. And as you move on as the number 2 seed in the match, and you move on and enjoy your 2 weeks at Roland Garros, that this is a blip in your screen, but this is real life for me.
Yeah.
And I can't get there. And I can certainly appreciate where Sabalenka is, where your Russian athletes are, the ones who don't support it, the ones like Rublev who've come out and said, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
What's happening at home.
Yeah.
I do understand how we, the rest of the world, whether our governments are still sending arms or financial support, the rest of us have sort of moved on wrongly.
Yep.
That we were all so invested in early 2022.
And hey, look over there, that shiny thing.
Yeah, that's moved on, and you're like, okay, this is happening. All right, I'm sorry about what's happening there, but it's still real for those people. Of
course.
It's still every day, and so
yeah,
we can't sort of put our cushy lives in comparison and our perspectives onto her.
No, I think that's right. And I personally, obviously, have no objection to her not wanting to shake hands with an athlete representing Belarus at this competition. I think that's fine. To me, what was interesting
we were talking
was this crowd, this full of, for whatever reason, people booing her, was what their motivation was. Was it ignorance and not understanding, which is still not forgivable?
Right.
Or was it, no, we know exactly what's happened, and we think you should shake her hand anyway? And to me, that's an interesting distinction, and one we'll never get a real answer to. But in that moment, the match is over, everybody claps. Normally, it's just protocol. They walk to center court, shake hands, whatever, acknowledge each other, and this one's not. Did you just quickly go, hey, fuck you? Or was it,
yeah.
See,
if we have an Australian and an American and it's a heated match and they choose not to shake hands, you boo those people for poor sportsmanship because that's what that is. That is a decision made on, I am upset and unable to get past the result here.
That's why I mentioned off the top, Koscheck lost in 2 sets. Is this an easy...
Yeah, and I understand for context why you throw that in there, but to me, it is a bit of the red herring in the conversation. Because to me, it's she could have won this in 2 sets and still not shaken Sabalenka's hands.
But what we know is she didn't. And
right. And so, but to me, I am so firmly behind the idea that the score doesn't matter.
No, I think I'm with you there. I just...
And so the French crowd, like I said, as somebody who's far removed from it, no Ukrainian ancestry, no nothing, but just as a somewhat semi-knowledgeable citizen of the world, you look at it and go, Belarusian, Ukrainian, The fact that you can sit there for 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever.
I haven't yet figured out why this is noteworthy.
Yeah, and you go, boo, boo. Just be
cool, man.
Yeah.
Be better.
Bitch, be cool.
Like I said, if any country should understand,
it's the French, man.
Yep.
It's the French. And just, as I said, just accept your overlord. Bring it in.
Sure.
We're good. We'll wait and we'll see what happens. And maybe if you're like here in Canada, you're just going to wait 200 years and then you'll bitch about your oppressor there. And maybe we'll become a bilingual country and we'll be totally fine.
Lot to unpack there.
Sorry about that, man.
No.
I got shit to say. It's been a long time, man.
That's coming through loud and clear.
We've been off the mic for, I've been off the mic for 3 weeks. So, and I do enjoy this. The strawberries coming through, loud and clear.
Yeah.
Smooth though, smooth.
See, I just finished up this one, the humility.
Yeah,
it didn't bring a lot to the table. I think the beer was very good. It did not bring much humility to the microphones here in the studio today.
Well, is that what you're tuning in for? Have a take.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, it was a pretty ugly scene around a sporting event that a lot of people like to turn to sports for an escape, right? As opposed to more of the real world, but the real world doesn't take a break, and you could make a pretty strong argument that French crowd maybe lost their composure here just a little bit. I know you got a little bit more on that, but before we do, got another beer. What'd you run with this time?
Are you back to kick and push over there?
No, I've gone this time. Our buddy Andy, he's got a couple new things out. I'm going to encourage people to head over to needabeer.com and check that out.
I'm going over there soon.
Good. You should, man. I was just there on Saturday and had a little visit with Andy. You remember, I know most people do, right, that the thing about Cheers, right? You walk in, was that Norm?
What's shaking? 4 cheeks and a couple chins?
This is now 2 or 3 straight times I've walked in there and he goes, hey, Matt, you fucker. I'm like, oh. I guess that's my norm moment, right? As I walk into the Need a Beer Company at this point. So I'm running with this one I've had a bunch of times on here before, but sort of felt like the right move with the weather turning the way it is. This is the Hans and Die Hosen. It's their straight up
Hans in die Hosen.
Straight up golden lager. Perfect for a summer afternoon. What'd you roll with, man?
I've also gone again local, but not to our good friend Andy. But Andy will be getting my business in the not too
he's getting my business
in the not too distant future.
100%.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
I've gone back to another good favorite of mine, which is Brew Revolution. This is, and it's funny, you and Steve and Jack Bunda here are talking a little bit of sort of non-traditional tropical stouts. I have picked up from Brew Revolution their Red Velvet, which is the raspberry.
Red velvet and that little book. Nope.
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough.
The nude Velvet Elvis, that kind of thing.
No.
No. And it's more purple.
Yeah. All right.
Red Velvet, which is their raspberry milk stout.
Didn't you just do that?
Did what?
Didn't you do strawberry IPA milkshake? Wasn't that your last one?
Strawberry milkshake IPA at 7%.
Yeah, okay.
This is a
raspberry, completely different.
Raspberry milk stout.
Right. Okay.
Coming in at 4.8%, which I think
same syllables.
Which I think Matt is more likely appreciative of, the lower ABVs.
Yep.
So yes, I poured it into a glass. And as of right now, there is virtually no head on it, which is the first thing I look to.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I spilled none.
Look at this guy.
Which,
Not a spilly talker.
which makes me 1 for 8. So, I love what Brew Revolution does. To me, it's a lot of very subtle, tasty stuff. So
fuck subtlety. Bring it.
Okay, but the bouquet is very stout, right? It has that sort of chocolatey, roasty kind of bit off the top. I'm not getting any raspberry in terms of the...
Yeah. All right. None of it poured all over him.
Yeah, well, that's usually where I first get it.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know
my
what?
shirt smells like...
That is not a stout.
Okay.
I am getting it in the smell of it, but a little raspberry up front. But I would say it's closer to maybe a dunkel, right? Just in terms of it's very dark, slightly carbonated, which I would not expect from a stout. It's a tasty beer, very much getting the raspberry, but I'm not getting a pile of the traditional stout in the taste. Right?
Okay.
So it's not, in a milk stout, you get that creaminess.
Yep.
I'm getting zero of that.
No creaminess.
No creaminess. I am getting the raspberry. So raspberry milk stout, 1 for 3.
Yep.
Meatloaf says that's not a good enough average. But there we are.
Yeah. Still something to enjoy by the dashboard.
Exactly. And it's not bad. I'm enjoying it, but it's not what I would expect from a stout. And so when you were talking with Bunda
Yeah.
about stouts and what you expect from it, I'm not getting that. I'm enjoying it.
Sure. That's where I landed with the tropical stout.
Right.
It's good beer, but
It's
it's
not
poorly
what-
labeled.
Well, and I think anybody who's been a long-time listener, that's what it comes down to.
100%, man.
What have you put on the can?
Do not set me up for disappointment.
Well, or for something else.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, but I love this, but somehow I'm still disappointed. Why
I went
is
in
that?
looking for something, that you're not bringing. So, look, we mentioned a minute or two ago that perhaps the crowd at Rolling Garros lost their composure a little bit, and that has been a fairly frequent refrain around maybe what's gone on in a few different places around Toronto sports at this point. Brendan Shanahan and how things played out with Kyle Dubas. Of course, John Schneider and Pete Walker a couple of times here recently, maybe looking, slightly displeased with how things have gone there. Look, man, you were the one who wanted to sort of float this kind of general topic and what was sort of coming out of, I don't know, how these franchises were being led or presented, right? Like, what's sort of your take on where things have landed at this point?
Well, and and it starts with the Shanahan thing for me, right? More than the Dubas thing. Like Dubas has now been announced as
Grand Poobah.
Yeah, and
Emperor Penguin, if you will.
but just yes, good for you, Matt. Ding,
Thank you.
ding, ring the bell. That's a great move for him, I think, in terms of he steps in there. He says he's the interim GM,
Yeah.
right? You're going to hire a GM and you wait for this shit to go down with the 3 legacy players there. Whatever happens, you then fire that GM and then maybe you sort of rebuild and step in afterwards.
Well, because what's noteworthy here is he's president.
Yep.
And interim GM.
Yes.
So he is the kingpin for the Penguins, and for now will do the GM job. I think he'll continue to do the GM job. It's just the AGM will have the GM title, and that allows you to hire
It may be like what you see in Montreal.
bad hockey and poor drafting. And
Yep. But in terms of you bringing in, you having your president,
yes.
who is former Ranger GM, who's come in,
that guy,
that guy, and
Jeff Gordon,
and you bring in Hughes as
Kent Hughes, yeah.
as the GM, and so I think that may be the thing, and it allows Dubas to sort of, in a no-win situation, which I think everybody feels like that is, and I know this isn't the topic we queued up, but
This is already what I said we were looking.
no, this is Dubas as a Penguin is all I wanted to go into, and so it just allows Dubas to sort of have his hands on the wheel, bring in a GM, and then when shit goes bad,
What I would suggest to you,
you then get to launch that guy, and then you get to sort of
I think it's far more this weird policy that the NHL has that you don't stop your people from getting a promotion, right? So let's, in theory, say that Kyle Dubas wants to bring in his former assistant GM in Toronto, Brendan Pridham. So instead of Kyle taking the GM job,
all right, Matt, you know what? This is interesting.
he takes the president job. Now he can say to Toronto,
Pridham gets to be the
Pridham is a GM. That's a promotion. But it's just fucking, it's no different
right.
than what the Canucks have done, right? With Jim Rutherford, who's running the show, and Patrick Alvin is the GM. But is he really? No,
Yeah.
everyone knows Jim Rutherford's running that show.
And you know what? But to me, that is, and that's what I'm looking for. I don't spend a lot of time on Leafs Twitter.
You should. It's a scene, man.
or around that, but I have not heard that. But that also, while maybe not as good as my point,
Okay.
is certainly worth entertaining, Matt, right there. Right?
And even if it's not one of the Leaf guys, you can take anyone's AGM that you think is ready
100%.
that you want and call him GM, and Dubas is still
It's a good point, Matt. Yeah. And I may have actually elevated yours to equal to mine.
All right. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so that's about as high a praise as you're going to get.
I know. I'm looking for your approval over there.
I'm basking in it right now. So, but no, where I wanted to go with this really was, and again, you and Bunda touched on this last week, which was you have enjoyed Shanahan, laid out the whole idea of I loved Dubas' summer. I loved his deadline acquisitions, and then I let him go. I'm not maybe necessarily so happy with the coach, and the core 4 or 5 who a year ago I said needed to find a killer instinct, and you still haven't maybe. And yet he's the one going before hiring True Living as a GM and saying, you 4 are probably safe here. I just wonder, and so again, Shanahan saying, yeah, I agree with all that, and you laid it out very nicely. I love this, I love that, I want you back, and then I heard one press conference, and now you're fucking out. It seems super willy-nilly, right? And then, as I said, last year I needed you to have a killer instinct. This year, I'm telling you, before we hire the new GM, I think you guys are all going to be back.
Yeah.
I just wonder, Shanahan, who is the guy who's been there for almost a decade, is the guy that maybe what we really need to have happen is maybe Shanahan needs to be replaced.
I think for the first time in these entire 9
In
years.
the whole podcast,
That's on the table.
That's a great point.
No, I did not say that. I'm glad you were happy to finish my sentence for me.
Hey, we're like young lovers. That's how it works.
We are not like that. We're like very old lovers. Yeah, Shanny.
Hetero
Life mates.
life mates.
Yeah. It's Shanny has come in here, and I do remember saying at the time, and just as a point, like just even then, just not that it wasn't going to work, but like lots of players have come in, like Steve Yzerman had already sort of established himself as a player, right?
And Yzerman, nothing gets out that Yzerman
Right.
doesn't want to get out.
Joe Sakic was establishing himself pretty well in Colorado at this point. Just because it had worked with those guys didn't mean Shanahan was going to work, because those guys went and did assistant GM roles,
Yeah.
right? And learned under, regardless of what you think of Ken Holland or whoever, right? Like
Yeah.
they went and put in their time. Shanny had done the league thing, right? And the Department of Player Safety thing. And then Tim Leiweke brought him in, and it largely since then, has gone fine. But there was no reason at that time to just assume Shanahan's going to run a great organization.
Well,
But
it was arrow up in the Leaf organization.
But like the first thing he did was re-sign Randy Carlyle. You're like, I'm not sure this is going to be an upgrade on what we've had. And then he brings in Lou, and Lou did stabilize things eventually, as did Babcock and Kyle. And like it's been
Mark Hunter.
stable. It's been
saying.
largely stable.
Yeah.
And I appreciate maybe that as much as anything else, right? And now it's back to, as you laid out, that I laid out. Hey, great offseason. Hey, great season. Hey, great trade deadline. Hey, can we talk about that extension?
I hate you.
I didn't
I
love
hate you.
I didn't love your press conference, so fuck you, you're gone.
Yeah.
That is not the way a $1 billion organization
Right.
should run. And so I'm not firing Shanny today, but I am suddenly raising an eyebrow where I haven't in a long time.
It's wicked on the
It's
radar.
now on the table. Yes.
'Cause to
That
me-
you're the guy calling the shots here.
Well, and just in that last 13 months
Mm-hmm.
that I've referenced from the exit to Tampa last year,
Yeah.
and this need for killer instinct, and that's the thing that sticks with me, right? Is these guys, this core four that we've thrown our support behind as Dubas and Shanahan and Keefe, I guess. You need to develop this killer instinct, and despite being outplayed in large parts in the Tampa series and still winning,
That's right.
and then going out in 5
Yep.
to the Panthers, is you've now gone to these guys. Just shut up, and this is the
That's it.
this
Just
is-
don't say anything.
you've now subscribed to the Pierre Dorian school of, man, as soon as you open your mouth, people are looking at you going, yeah, but you said that. Why did you say that? That's fucking terrible.
He's got some character for a European. Oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, and that is really where I'm going at this now is if you are the one guy who you're most happy with, apparently, you've let go, but the guys you've put on notice a year ago, and now you're like, you're giving, just say nothing.
And you're referring to Shanny on the day they called and fired Dubas. He called the top 4 or 5 guys and said, "It is my intention to bring you back." Well, then you can't possibly imagine a scenario where he didn't say that to the incoming GM candidates.
right. True Living has got to be, or whoever that is.
I'd kind of like to bring these guys back. So he's coming in. I don't know if he's 100% married to it, but he knows that's the position of management.
Guess
right?
what? My boss has already told
Right.
me. I love these
Same with Keefe.
4 or 5 guys.
He's apparently called him and said, we'd like to bring you back.
Well, and the later you go with this now into June,
Brunette is gone.
Brunett's the guy. To
Brunette
me,
was the guy,
Yeah.
and he's now hired in Nashville. So you've wasted time here, there was no world where I envisioned we would be 3 weeks out from being eliminated, whatever it's been, and that Kyle Dubas would be gone.
And Keefe's still here.
Keefe is still here.
Our
If those two were going, like I've said it 100 times, you know this, I wouldn't have fired Dubas, but I didn't think it was crazy to fire Dubas.
Right.
But if Dubas was gone, so was Keefe.
Well, and I said to you, I asked you in the last time you and I were in the studio, I'm like, did you love Keefe's job? And you're like, no.
No.
I
don't think he's terrible, but he's
no. But the thing is, you've said it, and we've talked about it all along, and I've made fun of the money at the time that they allotted to those 4 guys, and all the things that have happened since the pandemic and the static cap and all those things that nobody could foresee. You've gone through the dubious, painful growing years, or whatever you want to call those, as a first-time GM.
Let him learn on the job.
And now he's going to go.
Yeah.
And that the guys
now's the time you want to sign him. In theory, he's learned.
Well, and this is what I'm. Yeah. And so, but now you have the guys who you're like, you may have underperformed. We're going to keep that. We're going to keep that group. When you look at, let's just look at Keefe, and you go, I think he may have got outcoached in round 1 and round 2.
Yep.
And then you go, yep, you're safe.
Yep.
You buddy over there who did good job. You're out. And so my point is not Keefe or Dubas or the core 4 or 5. It is Shanahan. You say, I just need you to just, as a president of hockey ops, just be more low-key, more under the radar.
And he normally is. He normally only talks like once, maybe twice a year. And
but
now
then
you've put
everything
yourself
he
out there.
says
Yeah.
in those once a year, twice a year, is going to be absolutely.
He has put himself on notice now.
Under the magnifying glass.
100% now the Shanahan show.
And so when you look at this and go,
because the Shanahan plan is clearly in shambles right now. There is no plan.
And at this point now, more people.
If you changed a 15-month-long plan in 4 days, that's not great planning. That's not great leadership.
That's the Ottawa system. I have an 86-page document that I did yesterday that I'm changing today.
It's now a 4-paragraph memo.
Yeah, exactly. delete, white out, delete. Is to me, you're the guy who's been around the longest.
Yep.
And you've changed the coach. You've now changed the GM. You've done all these things, and maybe you've talked
his 3rd GM now.
When you shouldn't have. Yeah, but in terms of where they've reached the sort of, I was going to say apex, but we don't know what the apex of the Leafs' success is.
For now, it's 5 games in round 2.
Yeah, and you sort of go, bam, just that sort of composure, which if he just said less, which leads me to another Toronto team, only the one I like. The Blue Jays, right?
Some TFC.
Yes. I love some Argos.
I've seen you in an Argo jersey.
It's true, I have. Yeah. Doing the
little high stepping.
I love it, man. Yeah, great cup party.
Yeah,
for sure, man. Hey, you got a couple beers.
Sure, man.
Girls in short white denim skirts. I'm not sure. Only in Ryderville. Yep. You only see that in Ryderville.
That's what makes it special.
It does make it special. Just like that. If we could key on Matt's whispering into the mic. Special. Yeah, the John Schneider, Pete Walker duo, who have sort of that ISO cam that looks at these guys. I'm not sure I've ever heard in my nigh on 40 years of Blue Jay watching, right? The amount of shit that comes out of the Blue Jays dugout that's happened this year, right? Whether they're yelling at Yankee third base coaches, what, you know what I mean? Whether they're coming out fuming.
Hey, stand 4 feet that way.
All right,
just chill out, man.
And even the other night with, it was the last, so Kikuchi is, as we talk right now, it's 4-2 Jays. Kikuchi's pitching against the Mets.
Yeah.
The last game against the Mets, I mean, the Brewers probably.
Right.
And they have this ISO cam on Pete Walker, and he's seething, and he's yelling out, and he's coming out, and he's, just vigorously telling Kikuchi what he needs to see on the, and you're like, I don't know, man. To me, and the underperforming of the team, I just wonder if that duo, and if you think back to the beginning of the season, how much we heard about Don Mattingly.
Mm-hmm.
And Don Mattingly, you see all these pictures of Mattingly and Schneider together.
Who's now the bench coach for the Jays.
Yeah. And now you just see way less Mattingly.
Yeah.
And you see
Please
Walker.
Don't put me on camera.
Yeah, but then you see way more. Well, that was when this team was going to win the East.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, look at these guys, and they brought in, Donnie Baseball, and and all this stuff, and the improvements he's made in Vlad's first base, and he's hopping off, and he's doing this at first base, and he's decoying, he's doing all these things, and then as the season has sort of, at this point, as you and Nick Ashbourne were talking, has sort of underwhelmed.
Yep.
You see more of the Walker-Schneider duo, less of the Mattingly duo and Schneider duo, sorry.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be there's a lot of lack of composure. Again, if I want to make that straight comparison to the leadership, Schneider on Saturday got thrown out of the game. Now, they won that game. Mm-hmm. And I actually, in that fact, loved his fucking all day, you've been brutal. You've been brutal as he got tossed out in the ninth, and he came
to
out
the
ump, and he came out, and the one thing that came through loud and clear on the mic was, "Fucking be better, be better." And
I know you love that phrase.
100%, man. I'm like, you know what, brother? I totally get that. Fucking man, you've sucked all day, and you can see when you watch it on SportsCenter or whatever, his head's nodding up and down. You can just see him saying, "All day." All day, you fucking sucked at this. So I agree with it in that instance because, sometimes you got to come out and you got to fight for your guy.
Yeah.
But again, to me, it's just been so much, whether it's that Judge, the Yankees issue that went on for weeks afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And it seems to be the team is underperforming and you have this coaching leadership that seems to be slightly unstable.
Yeah, rattled a little bit, or what? Like sometimes it's your job to just stand there and take the arrows for them, right, or to take the attention off of them. And sometimes that's what that screaming at the umpire is. But you can see through it pretty clearly when that's not what you're doing. You're just actually coming unraveled in that moment.
Yeah, and everyone's taking their cue from that.
Right, and now everybody's rattled instead of you being that kind of stable force or whatever. No, you're helping unravel things here in a hurry. And as you pointed out, we had Nick Ashbourne on the show and earlier in the week, and he kind of said, yeah, it's fair to worry right now about how good they are or they aren't and whether they're going to kind of come back or not. And you wonder if John Schneider is feeling that a little bit, right? Like that he was supposed to be the guy who took them to the next level. Pete Walker, I've seen more in the last 4 to 6 weeks than maybe I ever have on Blue Jays Twitter, of people who used to kind of call him, the horse whisperer, right?
Yeah, the coaching guru.
Right. That are sort of like, all right, you did it once with Robbie Ray and you haven't done shit since. Beat it kind of thing, right?
DUI and whatever else
all of a sudden, like the crowd turns fast, right? And so I don't know what I'm.
Well, so you keep trotting out Tim Mason, whatever else happens there,
but I'd be stunned if either one of those guys is getting replaced in season here, right?
No.
Like John Schneider's just gotten this gig less than a year ago, or right around a year ago, I guess it's been. But yeah, you're showing. You kind of want your manager, whatever, your coach, to be this sort of pillar of, and if he has to freak out from time to time, fine.
100%.
But 90% of the time, 95% of the time, you want him to be kind of stoic, right? Or kind of just holding it together. No, everything's fine here. And you hope that players take a cue from that. But if he's not, now all of a sudden the fans start to lose their shit and the players start to wonder if, we're getting jobbed here when maybe you're actually not. Like it's a big deal.
Well,
if this guy can't present and
I've talked to you before, and you and I have been in a variety of coaching situations where, when I lose my shit in a practice and it totally infects in a non-positive way the group, it's like the herd is...
The air is thick right now. Everyone's on edge now.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing anything constructive.
It's not the positive situation that maybe you didn't hope to, but where you've let loose and you've loosened all of your own fucking I'm angry about this or that, and instead of it sort of clearing the air, it's just sort of muddied it worse.
Sunk probably the day's work.
And exactly. And so you see how that sort of permeates the crowd. And I wonder when I watch the Jays these days, and I'm still watching every game.
Yeah.
Right? I'm still totally invested in this 2023 squad. And I just wonder where that leadership and what appears to me as somebody watching from the outside, maybe 100% incorrectly, but what appears to be a shaken sort of leadership and how that falls down through. Because again, as you and Nick Ashbourne talked about, it is, you've had some great stories. What Bo has done this year, right? What you've seen in the defense of the outfield, which got a lot of talk early on. But man, when you watch the game on Saturday, I'm watching it against the Mets. It's a tight game, 1-0, 1-1
all the way through.
And you watch it and you go, balls hit into the alleys, and you got 3 center fielders out there. Shit's just getting chased down.
Well, I remember Hardin Zwelling being on here and saying the stuff that they're going to do, you won't notice because it's going to feel routine. Right? That outfield is, instead of these crazy leaps and whatever, no, they just have better reads, better ranges. They're just going to run it down, and it's going to feel routine.
It's
and
crazy.
Last year it felt routine, right? Where they just came up, again, without the leaps, without whatever, they're just 2 steps short, and it drops or whatever. And it doesn't look like out of, anything crazy. He goes, no, these guys are going to get to that. And
there was a ball on Saturday afternoon, and it was hit into the alley in sort of right center. And Springer just gets there.
Yeah.
Springer just gets there, and you're like, that's probably a double.
Yeah, with Teo's.
For sure, in other years. But you're like, you now have a center fielder in right who's just running that down. And so
Kevin Kiermaier, who you've worried coming in, is this guy spent? He's missed a year, injured. Is he
bad hips?
He's just fucking killing it, man.
He's a gamer. He's a gamer, and I love that guy.
Yeah,
and
suddenly I hated that guy a year ago.
Yeah. Well, I hated him for as long as he was a Ray.
Exactly,
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
You see, he's just eating up, and he seemed to hit those clutch.
Always.
And so like these small stories that are so good, right? And the fact that in the last month Brandon Belt is got an on-base percentage of 500, right? Like it's just, there's some the sort of that Gosman, Bassett, Barrios sort of.
Yeah, and they've had that virus going through the room. Springer lost 15 pounds this month while he was
shitting.
Yeah, like.
And really,
I don't know, right? I don't know where they're at.
And so, and you're right. And so, and I was looking at Vladdy on, again, Saturday afternoon, and he's hitting 282. Mm-hmm. He's got 9 homers. He's got somewhere around 30 RBIs. And you're like, man, a lot of guys would kill for that.
Yeah.
But it's
not him.
It's not him. And when he's not special, the lineup's not special, right? Like,
that's true, because he traded away some special to make other parts special. So you need him to be. You need him to be Vladdy as he is, right? Not swinging crazy over the top of shit and just looking more like his dad, swinging at his ankles, swinging at his eyeballs. Yeah, but his dad used to hit shit up and down there.
I know. But hey, man.
Dad had golf.
Nobody walks off the island, right? You fucking swing off the island. That's how that goes. But when Vladdy isn't, he's special, right? When he's not that special Vladdy, it's not. And then he has a 2-error game the other night, and it's just, Chapman has not been platinum glove Chapman this year. Huh. It just seems like things are slightly off, and I always sort of draw it back to the fish rots from the head down, right? In terms of what is being instilled in that squad in the dugout. That's, to me, it just sort of comes to that.
Well, when it comes to organizational composure, the Jays were tested pretty big here in the last week, and I would argue failed that test in a pretty big way. Everybody saw what went down with Anthony Bass. I'm not going to give the person who posted the Instagram story that he shared the time of day. I'm not giving them their name, or I'm not giving you their name. I'm not giving out what they said. But essentially, we're calling the LGBT community satanic, demonic, and Anthony Bass decided that was something worth sharing to his hundreds of thousands of followers as a professional athlete. I'm going to punch down at a targeted community, and I'm going to pile on. And maybe this sounds a little silly, but on what was meant to be a Monday off day, suddenly now the manager and the organization are talking about this shit. He comes in on Tuesday, and he's off. I would suggest instructed to give an apology.
Scripted for sure.
Yeah. If you're going to give anyone, let me just help you out here to the good listener. If you're about to give anyone an apology for anything, do not start with the phrase, I'm going to make this quick, and then expect them to take that apology seriously. Then you don't take any questions. This was bullshit. And I don't know whether or not the Jays should have just cut him on the spot.
Released.
I put out on Twitter, and you can imagine both the positive and negative
Of course, man.
impact.
Yeah.
I said, Anthony Bash should be less scared of the letters LGBT, but be very scared of the letters DFA and AAA. And of course, it made the rounds, and people from all sides come running at that point.
Yep, of course, man.
Look, he's not good at his job. And the one reply,
Which is the biggest thing he should be afraid of.
that's what I'm saying, right? Like, regardless of everything else, and we'll get to that in a second. But I had some jackass in my reply saying communists shut down any dissenting argument. Like, and capitalists demote people who suck at their job and bring negative attention to the business. You can't be an asshole and bad at your job at the same time and expect to hang around. But that's what this guy has done at this point, and he's had a bad year. And this is not the first time that he has made himself the center of attention. If you go back to the popcorn spilling on an airplane bullshit. So he shares this. It comes out, that day, obviously, as he shares it the next day, the Jays have to react. He comes out and gives this apology. And it was clearly forced, clearly instructed.
He had the face that looked like he sucked on a lemon before he gave that sort of canned speech.
And just my close friends and family, shut up.
Yeah.
If you believed any of that, you wouldn't have shared this in the first place. Right. So I just, this becomes the usual free speech argument. He can say what he wants.
And the thing with that is, Matt, free speech, we're all entitled to free speech, right? When you are working contrary to the brand of your employer, guess what? That's not how it works. When you are damaging the company you work for's brand,
you're free to speak. You're not free from consequence.
That's exactly right. And so, yeah, you are free to say that, but you are also free to suffer the consequences of said free speech, which is fine if you're willing to embrace both sides of the free speech.
Sure. 42,000 people booing you the next time, which happened, right? He gets called out from the pen and everybody's booing him and this and that. And I just wonder when I look at that apology, man, it is next weekend that the Jays are going to celebrate Pride Weekend at the Dome.
Yep.
And it appears pretty clear they plan to have him on their roster still. So you're going to twist that arm and say you're going to go out and apologize because we want to sell some fucking tickets. And that's all.
The ballpark's for everybody, Matt.
That's what I hear.
Yep. That is what they say.
That is what they say. And so it was, you go out and apologize and don't damage our ability to sell tickets and look good here on Pride Weekend, when clearly all you've demonstrated is that Pride Weekend is just something on our calendar, and we're totally fine to have somebody here who calls them demonic and satanic. They're part of our team, and we love them too. And so you want to talk about the stability of John Schneider? I don't think he gave a satisfactory answer to that. I don't think Ross Adkins, who gave a written answer in the Sun later in the week, said, well, we believed that his apology was genuine. Motherfucker, you are not the one who he needs to apologize to.
Yeah. And see, to me, I thought his response was good, but I thought it was gonna involve further consequences.
Could you outline for us that when he says he's going to take advantage of the Blue Jays' resources to learn more and improve? Could you tell us what that's going to look like? No,
I can't. But what
I'm saying to them.
But what I am saying is when he talked about further learning or further consequences, I thought that when he said that that's not our brand, he doesn't speak to our brand, and he alluded to other consequences. I thought that was waived right? But then you bring him back out later. So that to me is a big miss. And again, you are making, as private citizen, once you are no longer a member of an MLB franchise, you can join Kid Rock and you can do that shit and say whatever you want as Joe Private Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
No problems, man.
And you can say it now, but they can DFA you tomorrow.
And that's it. And as somebody who is an irrelevant, guy who's at this point now who is going to be pitching when you're down
Low
5.
leverage, you don't matter. We got someone else who can do that.
Exactly. So guess what? That is the consequences of.
Yeah, for me, look, I'm annoyed with the Blue Jays who easily could have done something here when you have an employee who A, is bad at their job, and B, is making you look bad as a publicly traded company. This should have been a slam fucking dunk, and they decided to pass on that. I think that's bad enough, but obviously my real anger here is towards this fucking guy, Anthony Bass, who has made $70 million in his career and gets to hide behind a $1 billion company and a PR staff who's going out on his days off and using his Instagram to punch down at an already targeted community. And I think that's fucking horseshit. And the biggest part of this is that you don't understand, and clearly he doesn't, the damage that this does, right? These people are already constantly under threat. They have been vilified, and you just don't understand the attention that you're putting on them. And you're watching these cable networks and whatever full of other millionaires that are winking at the camera and saying, we're in on the joke. This is the group that we've decided to target to unite our base. And the people watching those shows don't understand the wink and the nod, right? Don't understand. And they're going out and they're getting mad. They're hurting people. They are killing people. And here's this fucking guy amplifying it. It should have been the easiest fucking thing in the world to say, thanks for your fucking time. You're out. And I'm sick of this, man. I'm so frustrated with, has Anthony Bass been impacted negatively ever in his life by a transsexual who's, I don't know, trying to shop at Target? Was that hurting you somehow?
Using the same bathroom as him?
Fuck. It's punching down, and I hate it.
Yep. Yeah, and I can't say it any better than you have. This was an easy opportunity for the Jays to say bye-bye.
Yeah, a week. And like I said, maybe it shouldn't matter. Like at its most basic, we're just a business. You're trying to sell tickets and rainbow jerseys next weekend. I wouldn't have that guy on my on my roster while I'm trying to do it.
Yeah, all the talk about
most cynical. That's what it boils down to. Get this fucking guy out of here. He's bad for business.
Well, because I would rather he be waived than for him to be out front next week saying
you can't pitch him next week.
Saying, hey, sorry about that. Love it. Wearing his own fucking pride jersey.
You cannot, and that's it. If you want to talk about this guy's learned something, this guy is trying to embrace change, then he is out there in whatever. The rainbow logo on his hat. If there's a group of Jays presenting a rainbow flag, whatever, he's one of the. You are a part of all of this, or fuck off.
Well, and
I still won't believe him anyway. So
right,
really,
but you are talking about, if you want to double back to his wife and the kids with the popcorn and shit everywhere, all over the place, just the lack of understanding of a self-absorbed athlete going, yeah, my wife is pregnant. She shouldn't have to pick up after my kids who don't know how to behave in a semi-public place. That's the first thing where you go, fuck, man. Do you not understand how the rest of the world works? And then
it was just he just had no shot at being right there, right? Like there is some sympathy for a pregnant woman,
of course,
traveling and
but your tone.
But now you've targeted the stewardess as being a bad person or whatever from your platform with hundreds of thousands of followers as $1 million athlete. You can't win that, man.
Yeah.
Nor should you be trying to.
Well, and exactly. What are you saying when you go, yeah, they've asked my wife to clean and jerk the stroller as she's 8 months pregnant. That's a bad fucking move on the but not for, yeah, I've allowed my kids to run fucking free reign. And then somebody said to me, hey, you should fucking have a little control here of your children. Oh my God. So that's the first thing, which just shows how far
Detached, man.
removed you are from what day-to-day
The general
people
public
have to deal with. And then you now move on to this, and you are so out of touch.
Yeah.
So out of touch with what everybody else is doing. And you don't have to agree, but you have to understand that there are consequences.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine that anyone who disagrees is still here. So we can probably move along.
High fives then to the rest of you who have made it to the end of that.
Yeah. The Stanley Cup final is underway. Vegas takes game 1 on Saturday night. Game 2 goes on Monday. I don't think this was a final that anyone predicted. I think a lot of us could have envisioned a scenario where Vegas gets here.
Yep.
Did not see anyone
Zero
predicting that Florida would get here. And yet here we are. And honestly, the Panthers, I'll be real with you. I watched some of the first and a little bit of the third. I just can't get into this, man. I assume you took down a little bit more of it than I did, but where are you at with a Stanley Cup final? Even that Final Four, Dallas, Vegas, Carolina, Florida. Vegas was the most northerly team left.
Yeah, I
wouldn't have known that.
I don't get that. I don't get the outrage that people had over Southern hockey.
It's not outrage. It's indifference.
No, there was lots of people saying, I can't believe this. This is fucking terrible. And you're
as long as they have teams, they can win.
This is it. and at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, are you in the NHL?
Right.
So like,
Ottawa, you coming around, you got an organization.
Is there something happening here? Salt Lake City, I'm looking at you. Yeah, I picked Florida to lose the first round. I picked Florida to lose the second round.
Mm-hmm.
I picked Florida to lose the third round, and I've picked Florida.
I've picked them to lose again.
To lose the fourth round.
To the Panthers.
Well, which is really, like I said, I sent you a text Saturday morning saying, just want to get in on the record, saying I think Cinderella's foot's too fat now. The delay is
swollen from all that dancing.
Yeah, too long. I think
on Toronto's grave.
Yeah, well, we love that. We do. We totally enjoy that. But most years I cheer against the Leafs.
Yes.
And then my interest, since my team does not make the playoffs, my interest lessens once the Leafs are out, which is the power of the brand.
What Greg Zahn's Blue Jays are up to.
Yes. Greg Zahn and Anthony Bass showing up together.
Oh my God. The Manalists.
We're doing it. That's a Fox broadcast right there.
On Barstool Live.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
I think Florida has the delay, I think, is terrible for them as a team who had that mojo thing just flowing.
Yeah.
And then they went from Boston. They rolled right into like 2 games, 2 days in between.
Off, that was it.
And then they rolled right into that sort of
a little bit of a break based on how quickly they punted the Leafs to the side. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I've seen some fancy stats, right, that suggest maybe this Bobrovsky thing. I really do, man. I'm a fancy boy. Get
a room, fun boy.
That maybe Bobrovsky, what's keeping him going is that he's better on rest, right? And as opposed to when you start running him out 10, 15, 20 in a row, he struggles. And so he came in not the starter, right? Alex Lyon started that Boston series in round 1 before he took up. So he was well rested there. And then he comes in for the last few games against Boston, punts Toronto pretty quick. He gets another bit of a rest. And then he's fucking incredible against Carolina. And then they have another bit of a rest. And now, he played pretty well from what I saw in that Vegas game.
Yep.
Now, these are all just things that we backfill in hindsight to try and fill our theories, right? I'm typically with you that when you are an underdog who's rolling, you want to keep rolling, right? The long break probably hurts them more than it does Vegas, who I think most of us would agree is a better all-around team.
But I'm seeing Twitter polls with 75% of the people picking Florida to win this series.
I think 75 people are stupid. 75% of people. And not just in this poll.
I think
it's way over.
I was going to say, I think that's low.
Undersold that.
For sure.
But I have time for the argument that they are here because of Bobrovsky, and as a guy who making $10 million every time they've tried to hand him the ball to run long term has failed, and yet when you sort of give him these spurts, he seems to excel. It's just an interesting.
Well, see, and you and Stevie Bunda again, we're talking about Conn Smythe Trophy winners, all these things, and
yeah, I think I misunderstood him. I think he was calling out for Tkachuk, and I said, I agree, it's Bobrovsky.
There was a bit of that.
Yeah.
You were talking about a Florida bend, but both of you were on different sides, but it's okay. And I think you totally overlooked Adin Hill.
I really did. I'm going to continue to do so.
Okay, well, and if you go, which of Bobrovsky and Hill has more wins in the playoffs? It's Bobrovsky, 11-8, as we sit here today.
Yeah,
right.
It's because Adin Hill was like 5th on the depth chart.
Okay, who has the better save percentage?
I don't know. I assume Hill.
It's Adin Hill.
Okay.
Who has the better goals against? It's Adin Hill.
Okay. He's playing behind a better team.
100%.
Yeah.
But the fact that
John Quick sitting on the bench feeling like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Well, you're retiring soon. That's what you're doing.
Perhaps with a ring. Sit back and enjoy.
Yeah, exactly, man. I'm going to coast through, smoke a cigar here. All I'm saying is, I don't think you can look past Adin Hill as the Conn Smythe Trophy winner.
Oh, come on.
All right?
I'm doing it. You're hearing me deride your...
Yeah, it's totally fine. You're going to go with who? Jack Eichel.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Jonathan Marchessault is killing it right now. Yeah. He's got like a goal a game.
And all I'm saying is I don't think you're talking about two goalies in Bobrovsky and Hill who didn't start the playoffs.
Right.
Period.
But Bobrovsky came in sooner and has clearly been more responsible for his team's journey than...
Still with lesser stats.
Yeah,
stats are for losers.
Yeah, I hate the fancies. I am not a fancy boy.
Anyways.
The media votes on this, and rarely have they watched more than half of either team's games. It's just the story.
Then you and I and all of them are on the same page, because clearly that's where we're at in this.
You would seriously give Adin Hill a shot at the Conn Smythe?
100% I do. 100% I do.
Crazy shit.
Okay, but Marchessault to me is the guy who maybe has, to me, the sort of leg up on that.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100%. When I look at these two teams, and I'm leaning towards Vegas,
Leaning? You texted me and you just admitted it on the show. I want it on the record.
Yeah, no.
Vegas fast.
Yeah. But I'm saying in terms of who I would like to win, not who I think is going to win, right? There's nothing about Florida between the uniforms, the shitty fan base who doesn't care for the most part, right? Even this year when, you have fucking people dressed up as
half
red
of you
seats.
Voted for Ron DeSantis. Why don't you get the fuck
lost? Yeah, more than half.
Yeah.
And that's of the 4,000 people who were there on a Tuesday night.
Right.
And so there's nothing about their shitty uniform. Like, everything about it is I'm not down with Florida. Like, to me,
they are the they're the Habs or the Leafs or they're the old guard representing the original 26.
And it's interesting because I'm not a Jack Eichel fan. Still now, despite his whole. And again,
everybody loves a redemption story.
I know, and there is a lot of validity to that story, right? In terms of how he shows up and he's just doing his thing.
Yeah. And
he's not the leader and he doesn't have to be the guy. And I get all that. I don't forgive all that stuff. And I love Stoner as a senator. I'm still a little jaded. It
was the greatest moment of Pierre Dorian's career.
Yeah,
just getting rid of that guy.
That's not helping, Matt. That's actually helping my story.
It's going to be the greatest moment of Nick Kyprios' career is to punt Pierre Dorian to the side.
But it does come down.
What a sentence.
It does come down to, and I was listening to Lee and AJ had a guy on from, I believe it was those two guys, who had a guy on from Vegas who was actually writing at the time for the New York Times, but he was Vegas based.
Okay.
And he does a lot of sort of sports betting and that angle. And they were talking to him about the potential A's, Oakland Athletics relocation to Vegas. And he's like, look, Vegas doesn't give a shit about the A's. And he's like, Vegas is a Vegas Raiders and a Golden Knights. And this was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
He's like, this is a hockey town as much as Vegas.
First in.
And that's what he said. And it was interesting in the concept that he's like, this is the first team in, and he's like, and fans look at the Knights as their own.
Yes.
And he's like, we don't want somebody else's, and everyone loves the NFL, so don't get me wrong. It's a brand, right? We're going to get the Raiders. They're going to come in, and everyone loves the NFL.
Yeah.
He's like, but we don't give a shit about your troublemaking ownership in Oakland. He's like, this is a hockey NFL town. And to me, it was a bit of it shouldn't have been surprising, but it was a bit of a revelation, right? In terms of how everyday Vegas people look at the Golden Knights as...
Because for the longest time, pro sports would not touch
Shunned
Vegas,
it.
right? It
100%.
was all it was all about the gambling, all of that. We don't want to be a part of it. We're not going to be. And the NHL said, we're going. And as you've pointed out, expansion, not somebody else's.
Yeah.
Now with the players, we're all somebody else's.
Yeah,
but you're not getting someone else's, Oakland A's or whatever, or Oakland Raiders, whatever. The express bus from Oakland to Vegas is running frequently at this
short
point.
trip over the mountain, anyway you go.
Right. But they came in first and said, we're coming. And they built this arena. And even when what I did watch on Saturday, that Vegas crowd compared to the Miami crowd in the conference finals, it's not even close. The volume, the passion, the understanding of what's happening, right? That maybe it'll be better for the Panthers in the Cup final, but if you're in the conference final, your crowd sort of is what it is at that point, right? Like you're selling out and this is not the same thing. I hadn't heard that interview you're talking about, but that's interesting because the NHL, that is one of the benefits of going first. This will be our team, our franchise. And like you said, the NFL is the NFL. You'll have some fans when you come in. Plus, it's once a week, so this week Detroit's in town. There'll be a bunch of people from Michigan who fly down because it's Vegas. This is 41 nights a year. The NHL, they've been clearly one of Gary's success stories, right? Similar to Dallas, right? Similar to Nashville. Like, it's worked and worked maybe way better than anybody would have expected it would have. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a beef with the idea at this point that Vegas is going to win this after 5 years of struggles. While my team's had 55 years of struggles. Good for you guys.
56, I believe.
Whatever.
and just it comes. So that to me was a needle mover, right? In terms of, we're a hockey town now.
Yeah.
This is and where the Panthers
most northerly town in that
wherever the Panthers play, and I'm not even sure where that is.
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, exactly. next to a fucking outlet mall.
Yeah. Oh, easy here.
Yeah, no, this isn't a real outlet. This isn't really an outlet mall. It's sort of like in Canada we call it an outlet mall.
It's the Tanger or whatever.
Yeah, Tanger, exactly. For now, Matt. For now. I love Bruce Cassidy, and I love the story. Fuck the Bruins. I love the idea that he can get fired and get a raise and maybe win a Stanley Cup in the year following getting fired by the Bruins.
While they set a league regular season record and go down in the first round.
El Flamo! And so, Cassidy, and it's funny, he was on local radio just this week, sort of in between just before the Cup final.
JR married to his sister or something? Or
no, Simmer.
Okay.
Simmer was in Washington when they hired Cassidy as coach there. So there is the connect. And they're both Ottawa guys, same vintage.
I've had a feeling there must have been some sort of...
Bruce Cassidy played for the 67s, local guy from Nepean. So anyways, and he's so down to earth, that guy. And he will, without to a fault, be honest.
Yeah.
And they asked him, they're like...
It's like playing you can't beat the Coyotes on a January night. Wasn't that him?
That was him. Yeah, and he had to come through and say, "Hey,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean my super accurate thing I said.
It's sorry for honesty. I know nobody likes that honesty." But he was saying, he's like, "Yeah, you know what?" He goes, "I love the Bruins." He said, "I still love the Bruins." And he said, and the one silver lining to this is, he goes, "Well, we still have a summer place in Cape Cod," and he goes, "And I can go back, and my kids are in middle school, and I don't, their buddies don't have to. He doesn't have to hear from their buddies that your dad sucks." You know, the Bruins went on to have the best season ever, and your dad got fired, and he's like, but that to me is, you don't hear that from every coach, right? And so I got a lot of time for the D-core there in terms of playoff, how you want to construct your defense. I'm looking at you, Eric Brandstrom. You're fucking tailor-made for what Vegas is doing. So to me, I think I'm leaning that way as my heart pulls, and I think just how it sort of sorts out in terms of Cinderella and her fat foot for that sweet glass slipper at this time of day.
Right. Yeah. I assume as it gets closer, right, I may get into the series a little bit when there's a chance for the cup to come
The
out.
hockey was good, though. I like the hockey last night.
I watched most of the first, and I watched the first half of the third period, and I kind of looked up, and I'm like, I don't care about this.
Oh, did you not love Anthony Bass's shorthanded goal to start that game? Oh, wait, that was Eric Stahl.
Whoops. Yes. Another guy who swears he's never worn a rainbow shirt. We're looking at it.
I see it.
It's the Montreal Canadiens. Did you think no one took a photo, you big, stupid... Anyway.
Yep. But it's I loved how Florida thought they could step back out and sort of bully Vegas a bit, and it
Took a run in the first
bit
of the first period, came out hitting,
and up 1-0.
Yep.
But man, I think anybody who looked at how these two teams were constructed goes, I don't know if that's going to work, man. I just didn't see that.
No, you mentioned Sean Simpson at TSN 1200 there a few minutes ago. He tweeted out quite correctly in kind of a hashtag hockey Twitter after dark moment. Look at the size of that Vegas D. You're like,
Muzzle up.
but he's right. It's a large defense they have, and they're not going to be pushed around like some of the, Carolina, perhaps the most well-respected
D-core?
defensive system, and core in the. It's not a huge group, right? And Florida did manage to push them around a little bit. They certainly did to Toronto.
You have a defenseman there who everyone is, loves, who was a Lady Byng winner.
Yeah. He's going up against a bunch of guys who are not
Lady Byng, no, for sure. And we love those D guys in February. I'm not sure we love them in May.
Well, what was it?
Jacob Slavin.
Yeah, no. At some point after it was clear Vegas was going to win, you got Mark Stahl holding somebody, I can't remember who, one of the Vegas guys from behind, while Matt Kachuk's punching him.
It was Nick
Hague.
It was Bennett and Hague, I think.
Well, first he's holding it. It's Kachuk who punches Hague, and then when they let him go, Bennett delivers the cheap shot from the side. Like, you fucking... But it's gotten them this far, I guess.
Yeah, for sure it has. And you know what the beauty...
Ride it till it bucks you.
You know what the beauty of that is? And then Hague's bleeding from the... Yeah. But he's just smiling. And that, to me, means so much, right? Like,
I see.
You're like... Psh.
Not when Auston Matthews does it. But
yeah, but Auston Matthews isn't winning when it happens.
He was, actually, at the time. And then they did not win.
Okay, all right. Yeah. There you go. Thank you, Matt, for taking that all the way home.
Yeah.
It is the...
So how we want to view these teams. It's I love how cool he stays. But not you. You get angry.
Well, it's the difference between... I'm winning the game going, hey, let's see what he's doing here.
Matthews was winning the game and winning the series at the time.
Did he win the series?
He did not win the series.
Okay, well, we'll check back in 4 games.
Yeah, it's going to be 3, but that's...
Yeah, all right. And so, to me, and the thing when you see all this talk of Sam Bennett through this playoffs...
It's funny. Congrats to Nick Hague. Bleeding from his ears.
Yeah.
That guy, he's killing it.
It's really what it comes down to is Sam Bennett's a guy who was such a high sort of... He was ranked so high in that draft.
Yeah.
And then they're like, the guy can't do one chin up. Do you remember that?
I do.
And they're like, fuck it, that guy's not physical enough.
That was the last time I related to him.
Yeah, well, it's...
Me and Sam Bennett.
It's a little harder in terms of...
All right, anyway.
Yeah, but they're like, that guy's not physical enough, he doesn't have enough, whereas...
Now he's throwing flying forearms.
Everyone's loved his jam, right? All playoffs, and you're like, yeah, that's the guy who couldn't do a chin up, and his draft stock fell dramatically because
you're throwing around the word "everyone" way too easy here in this last couple of minutes, man.
Oh no, but he was a top 3 pick that slid.
Yeah, down to 6 or 7 or wherever Calgary was.
12,
at the time
I believe.
For Brad Treliving,
right? In terms of
let him.
I just can't. Do that chin.
It's hard, man.
Well, it's
How many chins up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's easier when you have 3, right? It's just easier to.
Oh, you've got that backwards.
No, it's harder. You're right, man. Totally harder.
That's probably good for this edition of the Talk Can Audio.
We've covered a lot of shit here, have we
honestly, and created a lot. So,
Well,
we'll
there's
see.
been stuff said here that you should be ashamed of, Matt.
Yeah, if it ever sees air.
Yeah, that is the beauty of doing your own edit.
Yeah. I haven't said a stupid thing ever on this show. It's gorgeous in that regard.
No, well, that's what makes you the pinnacle.
Yes, the pinnacle of so many things. So next week, when Rob is in here, he'll hit us with
Oh yeah,
with his picks,
and that's
on,
a nice. I'm going away with that. I'm going to work on that.
yeah, 10 songs that are for sure on the Music of Matt's Life playlist.
Yes.
Don't forget Sean Burke, GM of the Ottawa Red Blacks.
Great get, Matt. Great get.
We'll see if he's still taking my calls on Monday morning.
Of course he will. He strikes me as a guy he's okay with all this.
I think so. So look for that on Thursday morning. Make sure you're subscribed to the pod wherever you're hearing us right now, and give us a follow on social media at Talk Can Audio. For Rob Christie, my name's Matt Robinson. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
The hell is that?
Number one bullshit. Oh, number one bullshit.
Why are you so pissy?